I spent on a general staff looking at operations and logistics and being in these operations and seeing the fake news that we produce on a daily basis just for operations sake, and it's the same stuff you're seeing on the television today. How many people here, raise your hands, know that the media was lying about Trump and the Russiagate? How many people know that they were lying about the Russian whores in the hotel room peeing on beds?
Oh my God.
How many people know that Ukraine thing was also a bunch of horse poo-poo? Okay? So you have to take it for granted that the media is lying to us. And if they're lying to us some of the time, they're lying to us all the time. It's called propaganda. They've been at it probably for 100 years, and they're damn good at it. So when you hear so-called experts, or you see so-called experts on television, and forgive me about people wearing masks or what have you, God bless you, but they're lying to us about this thing. They're killing our economy. They're destroying our lives. Okay? And we cannot allow it. Okay, so I get being a Marine, and being in planning, and being in process improvement. Well, guess what Marines do all the time? We plan. We're always planning. And we're always changing our plans because the first thing they teach us is don't fall in love with your plan because contact with the enemy destroys your plan anyway.
They always take the hill.
And hey diddle diddle straight up the middle. That's the way the Marines do it. Okay, so I got a big plan here. I'm going to quickly go through this, okay? This is mine as from a military standpoint and yeah, basically a military, I could say process improvement again, but I'm not going to. Okay, the big plan. Citing the Declaration of Independence, we're going to empower our counties to defend themselves and us from state, federal, and global UN encroachments. Okay, we're going to do this by, I've got a list of ordinances and resolutions here. The first one, which I have in the package, you can look at if you're interested. Bill of Rights Ordinance, citing Title 18, USC, subsection 241, subsection 242, and subsection 2381, as justification to arrest state and federal officials who come into our territory and try to enforce unlawful edicts issued by the governor or even by the legislature, or the Congress for that matter. If these things violate our rights, there's a 10-year sentence and a $10,000 fine for anybody who does that. And if it's done against the entire state, that counts to me like a crime against humanity. There's over almost 10 million people in this state. So when you affect the lives of 10 million people, Governor Whitmer, that's a crime against humanity. Second one, citizens grand jury. Okay, we have a resolution to establish a citizens grand jury in the county. Okay, and this citizens grand jury is made up to determine whether an elected official has violated the rights of the people, or even one person, because the violation of one person's rights is a violation of all of our rights. Okay, and that way we have an unbiased jury that can actually decide whether a crime is actually being committed. Third, and this is the one I came here to talk about because we have to talk about it. A militia resolution establishing a county militia and calling upon the township governments to raise militia units in support thereof. Okay? Who here is afraid of the word militia?
I want to be honest. Depends on what's backing them.
Who here is afraid of the word militia? Okay? Because it's been given a bad rap for the last 240 years. The militias are what started our country.
Yeah.
And the propaganda, once again, from the lying sack of horse crap media, has turned them into white supremacists and KKK and everything that we all know is anti-American. Because American is justice for all. So that's horse crap. So we have to change, we have to steal that word back. It's ours. Okay, a resolution protecting the property from repossession during economic hardship. Mortgage companies should sue the Federal Reserve System, the banks that have crushed our economy through their reckless and predatory and parasitical goddamn economic and financial processes has destroyed our economy. So the banks and the mortgage companies ought to go back to them and say, we're suing you, private companies, because you screwed it up. And see how they like it once. Unite with other counties to form a union by joint resolution. This way, when the state or federal government passed a law that we recognize as being unconstitutional, boom, we have the resources and the necessary to straight to court, straight for an injunction to stop that nonsense before it even gets implemented. Okay, now we're getting into some heavier stuff here, which you're going to go, well, really, do we have to? Yes! As it stands right now, the government of Michigan is rogue. The governor took charge unlawfully against the United States Constitution and the rights of man, the natural law. The Court of Claims actively dissolved our legislature when they supported the governor's position. Why the legislature is currently still working with the governor and sending bills up for her to sign is a mystery to me. If I were in the legislature right now, I would not be sending anything up to that person until this case has been adjudicated. It's a crime. She's committing a crime. I could go further with this, but I got to get to this militia thing. Okay?
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to get a new constitution. A constitution where the townships and the counties are down in Lansing. Townships in the State House of Representatives and the counties in the Senate. And they're the ones being equal partners in the running of this government and not special interest groups and bureaucrats. I'm tired of these people siphoning off the lifeblood of the people of the state of Michigan. We can have an actual republic here if we all stood up and got into our counties and said, no more! No more! We have a right to run this state. We have an absolute right to run this state. We're the lifeblood of this state. Why don't we have a voice in Lansing? A direct voice in Lansing. Never mind this district stuff where the special interest groups pick and choose who gets the win. I'm done with it. Everybody in here should be outraged by the system that we're pinned down with right now. Okay, so I'm going to finish with that. Okay, militia. Here's some issues about the militia, Judge. And anybody here, sheriffs, legal, prosecutors, any of that stuff? Okay, well, we're going to go anyway. Okay, the militia defined, okay? First of all, the militia is the whole body of the people, all of us. Every one of us can pick up arms to defend ourselves, our families, and our communities. Okay? These paramilitary groups we have, like Michigan Home Guard, they're great. They're constitutional. They're here to protect our rights. But there are other gun clubs out there, like Black Lives Matter, and Antifa, and Lord knows who else. They are not militia. Those are gangs. Militias are here because to defend communities, and these other groups are here to tear them down. So what do we have to do? There's a lot of problems with having a militia. And I'm going to go down through this. A lawful militia is okay, I've already covered that real quick. Legal authority. Here's the problem, legal authority. Right now, no matter what militia we have, Michigan Home Guard or Oath Keepers or whatever, they're great Americans. But the thing they're missing, there's three things that you have to have in order to actually be an organized militia. You've got to have a moral obligation, you have a constitutional right, and then you have to have legal authority. None of these gun clubs have legal authority. Because why? Because they have not been organized and established by a local, county, or township government. They're out there. They've slung their butts out there for us, but there's nothing protecting any one of them. The FBI is always looking at them because they're already labeled as white supremacists. They're already labeled as all these crazy people. So So the FBI is always trying to infiltrate these guys and cause a mess, cause a stir. The militias need legal cover to actually operate and help. Now there's lots of things the militia can do for us. They can help provide crowd control, like Kerry said. BLM is going to come for us. Antifa is going to come for us. They've already been up here. They're already in Iosco County a few weeks ago, protesting. They're scoping us out. They're looking for soft targets. And they think they can just roll up here in a couple school buses and take charge. And we have to present to them the hardest target they'll ever come against, which means we have to get organized. And it has to be under the cover of our counties. Our counties have to step up and initiate an ordinance, as you were, a resolution, to establish a county militia.
A resolution?
A resolution.
So the Board of Commissioners has to approve, first things first.
Well, first of all, there has to be a body of people that has to be taken, that has to be presented.
Okay.
Right. But they can raise a militia. That's what the colonists did. Colonists were fighting wars against Indians from the 1620s. Okay, they raised a militia. So it's not new to Americans. It's not new to local governments to do this. Now this militia obviously would be a voluntary force. There'd be no cost. There'd be no cost to the government, basically. Unless, of course, they're actually called into service, in which case there are some things that have to be covered. Any kind of legal issues that arise from it. But just like any deputy sheriff who's acting in accordance with the law, it'd be the same kind of protections that the militia needs. Medical assistance, if anybody gets hurt, you have to make some kind of arrangement with the hospital, the emergency room, to cover these guys, And the benefits, well, like I said, I've already been through some of the problems here. Of course, there's no money involved, hopefully. There shouldn't be. These guys would be on their own. But we could also train our young men and women and teach them the Constitution and teach them what it means to be responsible for others and teach them about their history and teach them about civic pride and get them some professional. Everybody's going to have professional training.
Yes.
You don't get taught the use of deadly force, the laws surrounding that, by going to bed at night and sleeping nice in your pillow. You got to take some classes. Okay. There's no command structure. Okay. There's no link between the civilian and the military. Okay. And so, in my image of this thing, and the only one that makes sense to me from a military standpoint, is your county sheriff would be the commander-in-chief. He is an elected official, and therefore he would be, like the president, would be the commander-in-chief of this force when it was actually called into service. Then you'd have your under-sheriff would be like the commandant, and then you'd have the captain of the jailhouse working as adjutant or something like that. And then the township supervisors would be the civilian in charge of whatever unit they had in each township. And they'd be in charge of the supervision. Of course, the militias would do the training. We can coordinate the training through Michigan Home Guard, come up with a standardized system of training for all officers enlisted. And that way, we can talk to each other. This is basic stuff. Benefits, again, I covered some of it: education, civic pride, readiness. Okay, so your militia can be used for more than just dealing with bad guys. It can be used for emergencies, hurricanes, tornadoes, snowstorms, flooding, anything like that. These guys, the county sheriff can call them and say, okay, we're going to need some help moving medicine, or we're helping get generators going, or whatever. If there's a major forest fire, go help the fire department. There's all kinds of things these guys could do to step in and help on a volunteer basis.
And have a legal structure behind it? Is that's
the whole thing. You have to have a legal structure behind this thing, because you can't have these guys just going off and doing whatever they want. They have to be under the command of basically a commissioned officer, somebody who's been commissioned by the county to command them. Okay? So, benefits, civic pride, readiness, professionalism, discipline, added security, esprit de corps, and prestige. You know, it'd be really neat to see our young men and women marching down the street on 4th of July parade, showing off their colors. I think that'd be a most wonderful thing for any county, to see their young men and women doing something good for once, instead of getting poorly educated I'm not here to criticize the ALCONA school system, but the communist state-run school system's got to go. And that's another reason why we need to have county rights, because our counties and our townships should be raising our children, not some state communist with a clipboard or smart pad down in Lansing. Okay, command structure I just covered basically already. Professional service schools I already covered. Militia officers, candidate school, militia NCO schools. You know, this would be professional training. And maybe even, there might even be access to federal schools for some of this stuff. Once we become a recognized legal militia, just like a legal fire station or a legal sheriff's department, there might be training available through the federal and state governments that we can tap into. And that's
In a nutshell.
pretty much all I've got in a real nutshell. Does anybody have any questions about anything I shared with you? Yes, ma'am.
What's step one?
Step one. Okay, well, I've got, how much time do you got, Carrie?
I'll give you
Step one to
four,
get this legal status.
Okay, well, you need, well,
4 more
you
minutes.
need to form up. Do you have a Second Amendment group out here?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
they're usually
Yep.
pretty active. I know you've got active militia groups here too.
Diane, here, Diane, we do have a second amendment group.
Oh, so you can help me with all this?
I thought you,
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Well,
I didn't hear you.
Okay, he can probably educate me to everything.
Okay, yeah, you have to have an organized group. I'm coming up with draft ordinances and resolutions. I passed one out already, a draft ordinance for protecting the Bill of Rights, all of them. It mirrors an ordinance we have going down in Iosco County
okay.
that we sent before this whole COVID disaster struck us. And everybody is now kind of treading water here, but we got to include our townships in this. Okay, this is a group effort. Our townships need to be involved. It can't be just the county government. Yes, ma'am.
Dave, our, back in Oregon where we came from, our sheriff said that if the need arose, he would deputize all concealed carriers
Yep.
to be militia. And so he had already put us on, on notice when we got a concealed carry, that we were members of militia, and if needed, we'd call that.
We were the sheriff's posse.
Right, but there's got to be a body of people already he's going to be confident in.
And I belong back there to a group called the Minutemen, and they were mostly people like me that were out of service.
Mm-hmm.
And at a moment's call, you could get a call from the Minutemen to, now we didn't take weapons because we didn't, but we would show up in mass.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked.
Yep.
That was going to be my question, what about the sheriff? Has anybody talked to the sheriff?
Yeah.
So my question was going to be, what about the sheriff? What if he doesn't go along with
There's a
this?
gentleman back here.
We're going to have to get out of
I
sheriff.
spoke with Sheriff Stevenson briefly on this when we were bringing forth the Second Amendment.
Okay, I was going to say, I thought that was Dave.
Sanctuary counties
Yep.
resolution. So I sat with Scott Keith and the prosecutor for an hour and a half. And so we started the conversation, and then of course this pandemic took over. And so we're still active, we're ready to go. Right now we have about 14 men and women that are training twice a month here at the Michigan Home Guards in ALCONA and Iosco counties.
So it looks like Dave and Dave should get together, eh?
We are together.
Yeah.
I was going to say, bloody heck.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah.
You know, and we
I'm the dumb
we
one.
don't turn away anybody. You know,
Okay.
there's a job for everybody to do, so.
So then
You're doing
basically our main
really
next
great
step
job
would
of
be,
getting everybody organized up here.
Yeah, a few months ago, we had 2, now we've got 15, and they're still coming.
Wow.
So we're already getting the people.
And
Good.
people are going to realize that if you saw what happened in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, Antifa said, we're going to come over there from Seattle. Well, the people were walking up and down the streets over carrying, they had ARs and ear rifles, whatever they could bring, and Antifa didn't show up.
They got back on the bus.
I don't think they ever got on the bus. So, I mean, that's why we need to have a civilian defense force to protect our community. We're not going to be leaving and going to Bay City to do so. We're going to be right here.
This is our own local.
Businesses and, you know, everybody in the town.
okay. So,
Yes, sir.
This is happening all over Texas. We just came back. Little town, Gulfway. They were protecting a Confederate statue. We heard that Black Lives Matter was coming in.
Yep.
But they were met with a bunch of old guys with guns.
Yep.
And that's not the only town. There was also Belton, Texas, and several others. They were met with strong resistance, and they just turned around and left.
Right.
But my concern is that if the governor is so dogmatic about having her rights, that as the President of the United States has the federal troops, he's the commander-in-chief. The National Guard, she is the commander of the National Guard. And it worries me that if something arose that made such an impact, that she could very well call in the National Guard and put us all down.
How many of those people do you think would actually?
No, that's not the point. The point is she can call the Guard. There may be some on her side, there may not. They have their orders. I spent 27 years in the military.
And then you know that if you're issued an unlawful order, you're obliged you're duty bound not to follow it.
We don't know. You don't know that.
We're not gonna, I don't want to get any further debate here.
Well, they can't
Yep.
go against the citizens of.
We're not gonna, this is a debate worth another hour, so we're not gonna
Yeah.
go there.
Go into this forever.
Yeah.
so I'm gonna cap
Anybody
it.
are we done?
Yeah, I'm gonna cap
Okay.
it. Thanks, Dave. So basically, Mr. Adams, since Mr. Adams and Mr. Chandler are working together on this already, I think we're to the point where anything that you come up with in regards to a resolution to present to the commissioners, we're right there with you. Okay?
Yep.